Okay, now it's recording. So looking at my poll results, it seems like we have a little bit of a mix, which is cool. If you have spent any time around me, you've probably heard me talk about Canva. It is my favorite thing. I use it like every single day. So just getting started, I think Canva is often thought of as more of a design tool versus a instructional tool. When Canva first got started, I think that was the space that they were trying to go in, was more design related, but then they have really added a lot for educators as well. I think when they started the free educator premium accounts, that's what really got them a lot of teacher support. So they have really moved into a lot of products for us, which is awesome. So things it is really good at, you may have heard people talk about, like posters, flyers, invitations, any type of visual communication. It's very easy to make on Canva, and also you can really make it quite professional looking without too much experience. I think it's very intuitive. You can really kind of click around and find what you need without too many issues. So we are going to try to, in addition to knowing that Canva is great for all those design things, think about how it is useful for learning design. So I think it is really useful in students being able to show their learning, visible learning, their thought processes, doing some formative checks, feedback. There's a lot of accessibility features, and just allowing students to be super independent are just some ways why I personally would choose to use Canva over some other tools, which is interesting because we are a Google county. We have Gmail and all the Google stuff. But now that I've kind of started using Canva, when I go back and use Google Slides, I really notice how it can be a lot harder to find some of the things in Google Slides. I feel like there's a lot of things hidden in, like, under the menus and drop downs, and Canva, I think, is just kind of easier to navigate. Okay, so why use Canva for teaching? So in addition to those things I just said, students can really design and show their understanding in different ways. There's so many abilities for them to be creative and visual, in addition to, of course, verbal and just written responses. There's a lot of opportunities for students to show their thinking. There are whiteboards that can easily be shared, templates, of course, graphic organizers, and you can really see how students are approaching different tasks, which is super important to stop misconceptions early on and make sure that students are going down the right path instead of waiting till the very end to provide feedback. Feedback is so easy to provide in Canva. If your students have shared something with you, you can easily just highlight a little section of text and hit comment and type in your comment. And then when students go into Canva the next time, it will give them a little notification and alert them that they have a comment. And same for you. When if a student responds to a comment, then it will go back and show you that they have responded, and you can kind of have some back and forth communication that way. Accessibility is also a really big thing that I've found Canva is very useful for. The Translate tool is extremely valuable. I have used it a lot, making flyers and send home things for different schools. It is extremely easy to translate those. We have a very high Hispanic populations at Pisgah Forest, so that's been really helpful with that. But also there's other accessibility tools that are just helpful for our younger students too, that might need a little bit more support. And then, like I said, just student independence. They can do so much within Canva without having to go out into like the world of Google and just searches, because that always makes me a little nervous. So there's a lot that they can just find within Canva to add to their assignments. All right, so I wanted to think about, instead of just the tools, the different things that teachers are already doing every day. So these are the different processes you are going through. You're engaging, getting your students thinking together and collaborating. Whenever I go into classrooms, I always see like big anchor charts and things that students have worked on together. Collecting, you are seeing what students understand. You're having to collect a lot of data for many different reasons. Responding, guiding students to improve and giving them that feedback that they really need. And then accessibility, like I said, removing those barriers so that students have a more equitable learning experience. And then extend, there's a lot of extra, like really cool things that you can do in Canva. They could be some really fun student projects that are pretty unique that I have at the end of this presentation. If we get to it, we'll see. Okay, so the first thing I really wanted to share with you is a learning session. So this is one way that would be a really good way to quickly allow students to work collaboratively. So a learning session is really just the way that an assignment is shared. Instead of assigning it how you would traditionally in Google Classroom, where they each have their own copy, you can start a learning session and students can join with a code or a QR code or a link, and they all just kind of hop on there together. So even if they have not used Canva before, they do not have to have a Canva account for this. It's like this little short session that you can start up and then stop. And then while students are in there, they can, well, it depends on what sort of assignment you would send them. But what I think would be a really positive use of learning sessions would be to use their whiteboard feature. And I'm going to show you that in just a second. But if I have any people that have used Jamboard and were really sad that that was taken away, I think this could be a really good replacement. So Canva's whiteboard is basically just this big white open space where you can add text boxes, pictures, elements, and then students can add sticky notes and drawings. It's really cool. So I'm going to show you that in just a second. But I think the whiteboard as the tool plus the learning session with how you share that material with your students could be a really powerful thing for quick collaboration without it turning into a long drawn out thing. So one example that I was looking at for how that could be used with math, of course, I'm an elementary person, so that's where most of my brain usually goes. But so if a learning goal was that students explain how to solve a math problem using models, equations, and words, the process they could do that in could be the Canva whiteboard. So they would just join in seconds through a learning session. And then you could have that student task right there in front of them. So I have that students use the Canva whiteboard to draw or use elements to create an array or a model. They write the equation and explain how their model shows the answer. So I think this could be cool to have students all do on the same whiteboard so that you're seeing in real time what their thinking is looking like, and you're seeing how their different brains are working in different ways to try to come up with the same solution. This could also be a quick way or a good way to kind of keep misconceptions early so that they're not working through an entire math problem thinking you do it one way. If you're watching students solve these problems, you could quickly kind of stop them. You could pull them over to your desk if you didn't want to write like an actual comment on there. It's really valuable to be able to see them all working at the same time. And even if students do not have Canva accounts that they're signed into, it does prompt them to enter their name when they log on there. They can just enter their first name, and I'll have like little pictures of animals or something they could choose. So it has like an emoji with it. So I wanted to show you kind of what that looks like because I'm much more of a visual learner. So I'm going to pull up that same whiteboard that I had used for that example. So you can kind of see what it looks like. I just wrote that problem right in the middle there. And then I made my little illustration example. The way I did that is I used the elements over here to add those little pictures so they could make the arrays in a way that was a little more visual if they needed that. I know a lot of times in classrooms I see students like trying to draw little tiny apples on their paper, and because it helps them. So this could be a little bit of a cleaner option to allow them to have that visual. So what a whiteboard looks like, you can see right at the bottom, like I can zoom out basically forever. I think it's like infinite. I don't think it stops. So the more students respond, and when you're starting to run out of room, then you can just, back it up and zoom out. And this looks, how it looks right here on my screen is pretty much exactly how it would look on your student's screen when you share it with them. It will come up with this. And then over here, you can see this is tools. We have a little toolbar. It automatically pops up for them. So they have the option to, they can just draw, they can add shapes, lines, sticky notes. If you are a Jamboard user, you're familiar with sticky notes was one of the big ways that students contributed to those. So you have those options. Then of course you can add a text box and you can add a table. So those options are kind of right there for students. And I think many teachers would limit them to using those options just so it doesn't get a little bit too much and take too long. However, you do still have all the regular Canva, all the Canva tools in there. So if you have used Canva, you're familiar with this little bar down the side. So I'm just going to quickly scroll. Really, the most important tools over here on the side, I think, is Elements is extremely important because this is where you're going to find your graphics, like the things we would call clip art, visuals. There's even audio and like short videos. So if I click on Elements, this is kind of what it looks like. So when you scroll down, there's this little recently used thing. Then you scroll down, you can see all the different things that you can put in. So Canva has so many tools that they're constantly adding. So sticky notes, graphics, animations. They recently came out with this little like 3D Illustrator thing. So you could it's powered by AI. You could put in, I want a 3D image of a shark, and it would generate that. There is Sheets, which is basically Canva's version of a spreadsheet. There are forms, which we're going to talk a little bit about. There's just a lot, which that can be a little distracting for students. So I wouldn't necessarily immediately be like, go explore Elements. If I was showing them this for the first time, I would probably have them choose like something specific. Like if they needed an apple, they could go there, and then it has graphics, photos, 3D. So I would say stick to graphics or photos at the beginning there. So like I said, students have access to those things. By no means do you need them to do that when you are doing a whiteboard like this. You can certainly just stick to those tools. The other thing I wanted to show you, you can see down here at the bottom, I have multiple pages that I have added. When you just do this from scratch, it just comes up and looks like one blank whiteboard. But you can go down to the bottom and add these pages. So if you were doing different group work, where you wanted students to collaborate in groups, maybe each group had like a certain page that they were assigned. I have a teacher that I know will use this and assign students a certain slide, like, okay, you go to slide 2, you go to slide 3. So all these things are still together. The teacher can easily see all of the students in real time, and the students can also see each other for when they need examples and maybe a little help in some areas. So that's the basic of whiteboards. I wanted to show you how that is shared. So up here, you have share and assign. I usually go to share for everything. This kind of has all your options of, this is where you go to download it if you need a PDF or an image file. This is where you could present it. It will give you a link for the public to view it. All those things are in there. So you can see now that we have, it says learning session, and then it says new. That's a new feature. So if I click on this, it's just going to give me a little summary. It says no accounts are needed. You'll get a link and QR code you can share with your students. You can end the session at any time, which will kick them all out, or it will end automatically after 2 hours. So if you click start learning session, it's going to come up with this. So they could scan the code if they had a device of some kind. They could use this canva.com/ABC and then enter this code under it. I would probably think about doing that if I was going to do a lot of these. so that they didn't have to keep going to Google Classroom and getting the link. Then they could just put in the new code. But if you're like, I'm just going to try this and see how it goes, I would probably just go to the bottom and do copy link and code. And then it automatically copies to your clipboard. And then you can paste it in Google Classroom or wherever you are sharing materials with your students. So then from the teacher's end, it just looks like this. Like I would see if any students were in there, I would see their little cursors even moving around. And then up here, it says it's live. It still has that code if kids need to join later. And it will give me a list of who is in my session. If they are not in Canva accounts, then it would just say the name that they typed in. And then you can just go here to end session. And then, of course, you would still have this whole whiteboard that you could look at later, or you could reshare with them if needed. So like I said, you can do that learning session with like any of the tools. If you have a presentation where you want them all to hop on real quick, that learning session is right there. I just think whiteboard especially makes a lot of sense for just some quick collaboration and brainstorming. All right, I'm going to hop back over here. So the next thing I wanted to cover is actually using the assign feature. So another way to engage your students when you're assigning something, you want everybody to get their own copy of the template. This is very similar to Google Classroom when you make assignments, say everybody gets a copy. This is very similar to that. So they can just complete their work on it and submit it. You have access to it while they are working on it. So if you want to go in and check and see how much progress a student has done, you can do that. So this could be great for graphic organizers, reading responses, project templates. I think I read online somewhere that a teacher was using reading responses, like she made a ton of copies of just the template. So it was all in the same file, like 20 pages. And then students could go and fill them out for each piece of writing that they were doing. But it would have everything in one file rather than going to different files. And especially if you are someone that uses like a writing notebook, like having to actually physically take the notebook and look through it, this could be a good way to organize that digitally. Like I said, very similar to Google Classroom, but it does have those elements with like the graphics and the pictures that Google, Google Slides or Google Docs or whatever the other options might be. They don't really have all of those elements. So hopefully they wouldn't have to go out searching on the internet as much if they're in Canva. So an example of how you could use this with CKLA in elementary or any type of reading novel. If your goal is for students to find the main idea of the chapter using evidence from the text, you could have your student task. This down here, I don't know if I can zoom in. So this was just part of a worksheet that somebody had already made. There are tons of those out there. You certainly do not have to start from scratch. And I just changed it a little bit and made it fit my purposes. But the basis of that was already out there in templates. So that was really cool. So I just took that and I assigned it to my students, which I'll show you in just a second. And then over here, you can see it's just really easy to give students comments. I just put here, don't forget to highlight your evidence. You can give them encouraging comments. You can give them reactions like, hearts or little stickers even. They have little like kind of elementary looking stickers they just added recently that are really cute. So I'm going to show you how that would work. Let's see where my example was. Okay, so I just found this assignment. It was in the worksheets. It's crack the code. This could be like a good morning work thing. I do a coding club, so I was thinking kind of crack the code coding. This could be a cool thing to use as an example. But you can see this is a template somebody already made. I have complete options to change anything that I want to. It even has a black and white version down there. If I was ready to assign this to my class, you can use the assign button. Like I said, I kind of like share better just because it has so many options together in the same thing. So if I go down, I can click on assign. And then this is going to ask how you want to share it with your students. So you have a couple different options. You can assign it with a link. So you would just, it'll give you a link. You can paste that into your Google Classroom. You can assign it with Canva. So that would require you to go into Canva and create a class and invite your students, which you can sync your Google Classroom with it. So that is not difficult at all. Or you can just assign in Google Classroom, which is what I would choose probably. Because if you do that, it should just, yeah, you have to connect your Google Classroom. And then once you do that, it will just give you your list of your different Google Classrooms. It will ask which one of those you want to share it to. Okay, so this popped up. So you can put in your title. I could select my class. I could do points and dates, and then it will just assign it to them. And so I could go in there and view in Google Classroom if I wanted to. When they go in there for the first time, they will have to sign up. It'll ask them to sign up. They will want to sign up with their Google account. We verified that this meets all of our safety and privacy concerns and everything. So they will do that, and then it will connect them to your Canva Classroom because you sent them that invitation. So then you would be able to go back and look at all those assignments that have been submitted. If we have time, I'll show you how to do that. It's pretty simple. You just go back to home, and then there's a little like classwork button, and it just gives you a list of all your assignments. And then it even has like a progress bar next to it where it says how many students have submitted assignments out of how many you assigned. Like 3 have submitted out of 23 or something. And then it will give you that list of all those assignments together. So you can just go from one student to the next if you were reviewing those and grading those. So that's pretty simple to use. I'm going to go back to my presentation. For some reason, it did not want to do that. Let me try to refresh. My screen just, my presentation screen just went like totally black. Let's see if I can pull it up in another tab. Okay, we're going over here. I don't want to wait for that. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to share, yeah, I'm on the right slide. Okay, so Canva forms. This is another kind of new feature. So a Canva form is slightly different than a Google form because it doesn't create a whole separate form that you send to your students to fill out. It's a little thing that you just like pop into your presentation or your document or whatever you're already sending your students, and it can just be a quick little check. So on our first slide, when I did that poll, that was actually a form that I just stuck in there. So I wouldn't necessarily use Canva forms for like a long 20-question quiz. I would probably use it for like maybe you have a reading passage and then you have some comprehension questions underneath, or if you just want to do a quick little feedback check of how they're feeling about something, I think that could be more appropriate. I wouldn't use it for super long, but I think this would be really helpful for when you're trying to get a feel of how everyone is comprehending your lesson without doing a full-on quiz at the end. So you can design your questions all the different ways, multiple choice, everything. You can, one second. Okay. You can do self-grading. You can go in after and look at the results, of course. So I have up here, hold on one second. I think I might be sharing the wrong slide. Let me try to make sure I'm sent something else.
Yeah, we still see crack the code.
Yeah, that sounds like something about my presentation froze and then it like never came back to that. Something went wrong with screen sharing. Okay. That's fun. I am going to see if I can just stop sharing and then try again. Your by design. Okay. Are we seeing Canva forms?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, I'm seeing one thing and the screen is not matching. Okay, fun. Okay, so that is Canva forms. I also made a more detailed like how-to list of instructions down here that you are welcome to click on and look on more in depth. But I'm going to move on because now I have 3 minutes. So assigning and feedback. It's really easy to quickly highlight over something you want students to look at, leave them a comment, and then they can quickly comment back to you. You can have a little chain of feedback, and then students can just do a little check to resolve those comments after they've made those changes. So I want to see if this is going to talk. No. Okay. I think I muted it. So I wanted to give a little spotlight. You can actually add audio directions to any assignment, which I just recently found. I think it's really cool. And I wrote more detailed instructions here. But there's a thing called AI voice where you can just type in what you wanted to say, and then you can pick the language and pick the voice, and then AI will just say it. So you don't even have to record yourself speaking, which I do not love recording myself speaking and then having to hear it. I know a lot of teachers feel that way. So if you are working with elementary students and you need them to be able to go back and look at those directions again without you having to repeat them, that's a great way to do that. ML students, this could be a really great way for them to keep that learning equitable and have it speak in Spanish so that they are able to stay on that same content. So again, more directions there. Translate is another awesome option. It's literally just Canva Translate, and it will take whatever you have created and translate the whole design into whatever language you pick. So I do this with flyers, things I'm posting on social media for schools. It does an awesome job. The only thing, sometimes I'll have to make the text a little smaller depending on if the Spanish version is a little bit longer. Okay, so I covered pretty much everything I wanted to, I think. So like I said, I think it's just really important to start thinking about what your goal is for the students, and then you can easily find a Canva tool to fit in with that. Like if you want students to be collaborating together, learning sessions is awesome. If you want students to be accountable and you want to grade what they're turning in, Assign is a good option. I have a couple extra things at the end of this presentation that I knew I wasn't going to get to, but I want to put in anyway. So some Canva apps for teaching that are really cool. The Lucky Wheel, I think, is fun. Canva AI, there's a lot of really good AI features in there now for assisting with writing and things like that. And then also Canva Code is a really fun way for students to have some different interactive project options that they could create. And it actually will show them the code it generated versus the actual product so they can see how that worked together. And I linked more instructions down there. Okay, so I'm officially out of time, but thank you guys for joining me on this nice warm day. I can't wait to go outside, and make sure you fill out this exit ticket. And if you would like an additional half a CEU, create some sort of learning experience with your students. It can be what I went over today or something different. Once a student has completed something, just take a screenshot of that. You can email it to TCS ITF, you can email it to me, or if you want to wait and do the exit ticket, there's a place where you can upload it in there. And that will give you an extra half of a CEU for that extra work you did. So I know this was a ton of information. I love talking about Canva. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. And your ed tech coaches are also all amazing at Canva. So I'm going to hang on for a second in case there's any questions. But other than that, thank you guys. Enjoy your afternoon.
Great job, Alicia.
Thanks. Oh, you made it.